A lonely human man encounters a starving alien girl on a deserted planet. After saving her life, they develop an unlikely bond that defies cultural boundaries and leads him to a new understanding of family. Captain Roland Hayes stumbled upon the planet Rhea IV during his supply run, an uncharted world fringed with dense forests, high cliffs, and wild beasts. It was mostly barren, without much in the way of civilization, which made the young girl sitting by the edge of a mossy pond all the more surprising. Roland squinted. Her skin was a faint lavender with a shimmering quality, like stardust scattered on silk, and she had the largest golden eyes he'd ever seen. Her thin frame suggested hunger, but her posture was defiant, alert, as though she could spring at any moment. "You alone?" Roland asked, keeping his voice low and hands open in a non-threatening way. The girl tilted her head, clearly understanding his language but not responding. She looked to be in her early teens by human standards, maybe younger. Roland's heart clenched. She looked half-starved, and if there was any danger out here, he doubted she'd survive much longer. He knelt down slowly, reaching into his pack. "You hungry?" he asked, holding out a protein bar. She took a hesitant step forward, her eyes narrowing before she darted forward and snatched it from his hand, retreating back as she unwrapped it and devoured it in seconds. Whoa, there's more where that came from," Roland chuckled. He handed her another, and this time she looked at him with a glint of curiosity before taking it. "What's your name?" he asked, sitting cross-legged on the forest floor. After a long silence, she spoke in a soft, musical voice. "They call me Kira." "Kira," Roland repeated, letting the name roll off his tongue. "Nice to meet you, Kira. I'm Roland." He shared his rations with her, offering food and water over the next few days. She started trusting him, inch by inch, and soon they were sharing more than just meals. She told him of her people, how they had once thrived here on Rhea IV, until a disease wiped out most of her kind, leaving her the only survivor she knew of. Roland felt a pang of sadness as he listened. Here she was stranded alone, but he also couldn't deny that his heart was beginning to ache at the thought of leaving her behind. Kira was clever and sharp, quickly grasping how he used his tech, how his ship operated, and even how he thought. Despite her youth, she had a wisdom beyond her years, a quiet strength forged from solitude and survival. One evening, as they sat beside the flickering embers of a fire, Kira asked him, "Why did you stay?" He looked in her golden eyes and shrugged. "Maybe I needed the company too." There was a long silence. Then Kira whispered, "Would you stay here? With me?" The question caught Roland off guard, but as he looked at her, his mind raced. Could he leave his life as a space trader behind? Could he truly start fresh here, on a lonely world, with only Kira for companionship? Yet, something within him whispered yes. He'd seen a lot in his travels, but nothing that moved him as much as the fragile bond they had begun to share. And the thought of leaving her alone again was unbearable. "Yes," he replied softly. "If you'll have me." Months passed, and Roland found himself growing accustomed to life on Rhea IV. Kira's body strengthened, and her personality blossomed, transforming from a timid survivor into a joyful companion. Together, they built a small home, explored new areas of the planet, and created a life filled with small, shared joys. They had no words in either of their languages for what they felt toward each other. It was neither romantic nor purely platonic. It was something greater, something sacred, a connection that transcended the usual bonds between people. Eventually, Roland found himself wanting to give her the family she'd lost, to provide her with something neither of them had kin. One evening, as the two sat under a sky brimming with stars, Roland gently broached the topic. "Kira, I've been thinking, I'd like us to have a family." Kira tilted her head, puzzled. "But we are family, Roland." "Yes," he said, smiling softly, "but I mean children. Someone to grow with us, to make this planet feel more like home." She blinked, comprehension dawning. Her hand went to her chest, fingers splaying over her heart as she considered it. For a moment, Roland wondered if he'd overstepped, but then she nodded slowly. "Yes," she said, "a family. I think I'd like that." Over the years, their small home on Rhea IV blossomed into a family. They adopted orphans from distant colonies, human and otherwise, and eventually raised a generation of mixed-race children born of his and Kira's unique DNA, cultivated through their own makeshift genetic technologies. Their children had his resilience and her empathy, his strength and her wisdom. They were a blend of both worlds and neither, thriving on the strange, forgotten planet their parents had transformed into a thriving community. Roland's hair began to gray as Kira's violet skin grew richer, and the two found themselves, more often than not, watching their children, know their legacy, play and grow under the stars, knowing that no matter what galaxies lay between, they had carved out something meaningful in the universe. In the quiet of the night, as the stars glistened above, Kira whispered, "Thank you, Roland, for staying." And Roland, watching his family, could only say, "Thank you for giving me something worth staying for."